The other day, I was in Ireland and had a wonderful time in many respects, relaxing and going about seeing the Irish countryside, eating some of their pubs, and going to the Guinness tour. But one of the things I really celebrated was seeing a shepherd, and he invited me to his farm, and I counted all the sheep of his pasture, and then I went to the wayside of Galway, and Galway is the second biggest city in Ireland, if you are into that dynamic. And we were walking around their main street, and as I was looking around, there was a person with a track table. And I passed it, and by the way, track is an old term. My wife did not even know what it was. A track used to be an old little pamphlet that talked about God. You know, and maybe it talked about sin, maybe it talked about grace, maybe it talked about baptism, or 100 of other pieces of insight about the nature of God, and all on a small little sheet of paper. And so I glanced at that table and saw this tract, King Harold. Now, I happened to be a worker priest and being an addiction counselor. I just happened to pick up this tract. Looked pretty gruesome. And heroin is gruesome. But it had a powerful message in the inside of it. It talked about a Dear Abby article that I happened to print on the back of your bulletin. And it's, in that regards, it's an Ann Landers quote that she had. And it went like this. King Heron is my shepherd. I shall not want. These tract words were part of a twisted rewording of the beloved 23rd Psalm, found in a car with the body of a 20-year-old woman near Reidsville, North Carolina. Her death was ruled suicide from a hookup with a car's exhaust pipe. The note read, King Heroin is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in the gutter. He leads me beside troubled waters. He destroys my soul. He leads me in paths of wickedness. Yea, I shall walk through the valley of poverty and will fear no evil, for thou, heroin, art with me. Thy needle and thy capsule comfort me. Thou strippest the table of groceries in the presence of my family. Thou robbest my head of reason. My cup of sorrow runneth over. Surely heroin addiction shall stalk me in all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the damned forever. I say that because that tract highlights the dynamic of decisions we make in our soul journey, our spiritual quests. Way back when I was taking training for my addiction license, there was an old proverb that came out like this. An old Cherokee is telling his grandson about a fight that is going on inside himself. He said it was between two wolves. One is evil. Anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. Joy, peace, hope, love, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thought about it for a minute, then asked his grandfather, which wolf wins? The old Cherokee replied, "The one I feed." Spiritual quests. We're all on it. Everyone has a soul, and as much as they have bones and flesh and hair, or lack of it, or the like. And in that regards, what do we feed our soul? How do we enrich our spirit? How do we feed it with the good things? Well, one is to be sensitive and wise with the evil things, the bad things that can hurt and destroy our soul. In our gospel lesson for today, as we hear about the start of Jesus' ministry the week after Pentecost, the second week after Pentecost, we see that Jesus is going about confronting evil and how people were so upset, especially the leaders of the law, trying to pin Jesus away from what is true and right and salutary, which brings out healing of the body and also of the soul. And so when the Pharisees and the leaders of the law heard about Jesus doing miraculous things, they called him the Prince of Demons, Beelzebub, who deals with bringing illness into the body. Lord of the Flies, that classic book, talks about that. But, many times, like during the Black Plague in Europe, and even the recent one in Africa, those who are with the Spirit says, Beelzebub has attacked us and are killing us with this illness, the evil flies of death. But a Beelzebub can bring illness upon a body. I wonder if also can bring illness to the mind. The other day we had the opportunity to get the Orion Review in our mailbox. And, usually I don't look at that too diligently, but my wife said, hey, you might find it interesting. It's didn't have the Student of the Week in it, but it did have some interesting information in it. On the very front page, a few weeks ago, it was Memorial Weekend across America. And Lake Orion had did you march in the band? Did the band march? Whoa! Very good. I'm sure the crowds are just overflowing to see the marching band of Lake Orion in that regards. And maybe when you marched by, you might have saw this one individual, Nicholas George. He was all dressed up in his dress blues, which the Orion newspaper mentioned that he just happened to borrow. And my wife said, hey, you might want to read that. Now, I know a happy wife is always enriched when a husband does what he's asked to do. And so I happened to read the article. And wow! Nicholas George, a command sergeant. Whoa! Does he have the military acclamations that he proclaimed? He proclaimed that he was a Green Beret. Remember that good old John Wayne movie way back when? I always loved Green Berets. I wish I could be one, but I was just a chaplain. And he served 28 years in the military. And he was with every conflict since Panama, Kosovo, Somalia, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. He was on, according to the newspaper, 757 missions. Whoa! He has 2 silver medals, a Bronze Star, 6 Purple Hearts, and wow, he was like wounded, shot, 50-some times, and is about ready to have his leg amputated. That's going to cost $250,000. Somehow, though, all his military records are in New York. Oh, by the way, how many languages? I think he speaks 14 languages or something like that, and 27 dialects, by the way. Very long article.
It's 13 languages and 76 dialects.
Oh, 13 is correct. I want to be correct on this. 13 languages and how many dialects?
76.
76. That's good to know. Holy cow. Woo! I don't show off. I have a couple military medals, and I stuck them in the drawer, and that's about it. And I don't make any affirmations about things. But, I wonder if Beelzebub can, not merely attack the body with demons, but also the spirits, Ego and superiority and the like are things that can take hold of a person and destroy oneself. Maybe Nicholas George earned all those medals. If I was a reporter, I would like to have him speak in Arabic. There's a few other languages he knows. But I know the language that the Spirit wants us to have. And that Spirit is brought out as ever true and right and salutary, joy and peace and commitment. Commitment to what God wants us to be about. Commitment to do the right thing, to follow God's Word, the 10 Commandments, the other guidance that He gives us and provides for us. Ben Carson was, I don't get into politics. He went to Southwestern High School in Detroit, the same high school that my dad went to. Now they shut it down and the like, and I guess some entrepreneur is going to reopen it on 4th Street in Southwest Detroit. But in that regards, and I stay completely out of politics. I don't advocate one person over another, one party over another, because my goal is to get everyone, Democrats, Republicans, and independents up to heaven. But in that regards, I found Ben Carson very interesting as a Detroiter. And the story is that she married young down in the South, and her husband moved her up here, and then they got divorced, but they were blessed with 2 boys, and he scattered off and left her, and she took on job after job after job each day. Being a maid, being a cleaning person, doing anything that she could to support her 2 boys before welfare and other dynamics took place in our land. And Ben's mother never could read. But she would make sure that those boys checked out 1 book a day, either from their school library or the Campbell Library on 4th Street that I attended a few times. And in that regards, at the end of the week, she asked for the kids to hand her the book they read and give an oral book report. And Ben's mom would look at that book, turn some pages, listen to the oral report, and say, "Well done," and pass it on to her children and say, "I want a new book report next Saturday." And then they would go off to church, the Seventh-day Adventist church. And Ben Carson kept on reading and kept on studying. And he graduated from Southwestern and went on to the University of Michigan, then on the medical school, and then performed one of the most miraculous operations of our land. He separated twins who were attached at the head. But his mom really laid down the foundation of going to church every week, reading the good book and all other books. You know, Father's Day is coming up a few weeks from now, and I'm asking everyone to, if they're willing, to give a little story about Dad, for the good. How they might have touched not merely your mind, but your spirit. Now, my dad, if you don't know, owned a German bakery that he got from his grandfather after World War II in southwest Detroit. We lived above it, and my mom worked every day in it, and her dad likewise. And, you know, they worked 6 days a week in the bakery, and the Sunday they were closed, and we all went to church. And Dad always shut down the bakery the first 2 weeks of August and went up north to a cottage. I remember when I was 6 or 7 or 8 or a little lad, Dad went out fishing. He only has 2 weeks vacation. Even on Sundays, he always had to work in the bakery after church. So he really didn't have much time off. And one time he went out fishing at Houghton Lake with an old buddy of his, the police inspector from the 4th District, Inspector Ingersoll. And somehow that Sunday he told the story that with that old Johnson motor 10 horsepower and the boat on Houghton Lake, the biggest inland lake in Michigan, he and Inspector Ingersoll went out fishing on a Sunday morning. And Dad later told me that their fishing got interrupted because Dad had to boat across the lake to drop off Inspector Ingersoll to go to Mass on Sunday, and then pick him up after Mass to resume their fishing. I can't recall how much fish they caught that day. But I do remember so well, not by words, but by actions, to remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. Following the good word, the guidance of God. A story that was told maybe 55 years ago, still etched on my spirit today. Remember that tract that was passed out? Remember that little Cherokee Indian parable that was mentioned earlier? What wolf wins? In our gospel lesson, the options would be Beelzebub or Christ. For the remainder of your days, you're on a spiritual quest to answer that question. And now may the peace of God, which passes all of our understanding, keep our hearts and our lives in Christ Jesus. And all of God's people said, Amen. Amen.